In Indonesia, a niche product has a very low chance of success. Okay, whereas in Singapore, entry with a niche product, okay, has a better chance of success than entering into a generic market. What we are seeing today is that cybersecurity has become a very important component of corporate governance.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, a podcast series by Directors Institute World Council of Directors. I'm Tane All, and today we are honored to speak with a business management veteran with 34 years of leadership experience across diverse global markets, including Malaysia, Singapore, and the UAE. Well known for his ability to successfully drive digital transformation and strategic business growth, he is currently the head of IT Procurement at RBL Bank. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Shaillender Mittal. We welcome you on the show, sir.
Thank you, Tane. Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be with you today. And it's my honor to be speaking about what I've learned throughout my career and to share some good learnings and my experiences with others. Thank you. Thank you for bringing me on this podcast.
Pleasure is all ours, sir. Looking back on your almost 3 decade long career, what achievement has been the most fulfilling for you? And how did it impact the organizations you worked with?
Well, if I reflect on almost a 3 decade long career that I've had, the most fulfilling achievement has been leading the strategic procurement transformation for the bank that I'm currently working with. Uh, the transformation included a lot of things that were done from our side in terms of optimizing the supply chain, implementing sustainable procurement practices, and leveraging technology to enhance efficiency. What we did was we looked at all our contracts and we consolidated our supplier relationships. We leveraged our supplier relationships by ensuring that the largest of our suppliers have a better negotiated contract with us. While we did this, we actually realized a very significant cost reduction in terms of our spread that we had earlier, right? And then we also implemented in a very comprehensive risk management strategy for our suppliers, which ensured that the supply chain is up and running at all times, right? This ensured that the continuity of supply, continuity of the business, and it also minimized a lot of disruptions that used to be faced by the bank in the past. Then we introduced a lot of innovations in technology in procurement. We experimented with a lot of AI, right? Though we were still experimenting with it. But to start with, what we did was we incorporated AI into very small tasks such as query resolution for the stakeholders, right? We introduced AI into our spend management, into our category management, right? And we realized that this kind of an innovation actually lowered the risks that we ultimately may have to face because of a wrong decision or a wrong supply partner chosen. So I think uh, a procurement transformation, having come from a sales background of almost 3 decades, and coming into procurement, this was the most fulfilling achievement that I would say that I've had in the recent past. Yeah.
Sir, expanding into new markets is more about understanding people than products.
Yeah.
You've successfully expanded international footprints across multiple industries. So, when assessing a new market, what human and economic factors do you prioritize to gauge its potential for success?
Well, Tanmay, I would say I would not prioritize any human or economic factor. I mean, all of them are very important when assessing new markets and opportunities. In terms of human factors, the foremost that comes to my mind is the cultural nuances of various geographies. we need to understand how the local customs affects buying, how the local traditions and consumer behaviors affect the purchase of your goods and services in that market. We also need to understand what are the needs and what are the preferences of people in that market. Because ultimately, buying is not for a product or services. Buying is done by humans. And we need to understand the human psychology behind buying.
Yeah.
And ultimately, business is buying and making money, right? So,
100%.
so it's all about how you understand what are the different cultural nuances. For example, I'll give you an example. Uh, when I was, initiating a service product in the markets of Far East, based out of Malaysia. Now, we wanted to expand into Singapore, into Indonesia, and in Malaysia with a new product or enhanced version of the product or service that we were doing currently, right? And this has something to do with how the product and services are accepted in those markets. Now, if you look at these three markets, Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia, right? Let me start with Singapore. Singapore is more of a formal market. The business meetings are more formal. Uh, organizations over there, respect innovation and they empower their people to take decisions. So decision making is very fast. Okay. Rapport building is basically on the trust that you establish in a business meeting. There are no personal influences while making a business decision. Now you come to Malaysia, right? Malaysia is more of a formal market, but a little less formal than Singapore. It's more, you need to establish a personal rapport, right? And business is done more informally. Okay. There you spend more time, before you start discussing any business, you spend more time in understanding the person, talking to him about anecdotes that are relevant to him, right? And create a personal rapport with the person. Okay. There the decisions are taken in a hierarchy. Okay. But they are still a little faster than Indonesia. All right. Now, in Indonesia, it's a hierarchical decision making process. But what happens is the decisions take a very, very long time because in Indonesia, it's taken by the ultimate approver in the hierarchy. There is no one down the hierarchy who will make a decision. And there, apart from a personal rapport, what is required is that you need to have a lot of social mingling with the people before they start trusting you, right? So you spend time with them, outside, right? Uh, you spend time getting to know them. You play golf with them. You go out with them. Before it takes almost 3 to 4 months before you can actually start a meaningful business decision with the buyer. These three markets are entirely different. So you need to understand these cultural nuances. You also need to understand what are the workforce skills and availability of people over there, which are relevant for your business, right? Whether you want to hire uh, uh, local employees, whether you want to hire expats, whether you want to bring people from your home country, from your headquarters, and understanding the regulatory environment also becomes important because you need to know the local laws, the regulations, and the business practices. Okay, so that you don't, fall into legal pitfalls. Then on the economic factor side, it's very important to know the economic stability of the region. You need to understand uh, what's the GDP of the country, what's the inflation rate, what are the economic policies that may affect or may not affect your business, right? What kind of economic policies are favorable to you? What are the competitive landscapes? You have done a market research, you know the market size, right? Now you need to understand what's your competition doing in that market. What is the market share they have, right? And how do they have these market share? Are these products or services similar to yours, or are they, customizing it? For example, I'll give you an example. A very good example that I recall is that of Apple. Now, Apple, when they went into Europe, right, they went with the traditional design of their products, right? I mean, it has the same keyboard, the same look and feel, right, which Apple has across the world. Soon they realized that they need to embed the on the keyboards, they need to embed the local characters to be successful in that market, right? So they changed the keyboard for Europe, right, which Apple generally doesn't do. But that's they had to follow that because that is how people will buy. That
Yeah.
is the local cultural impact on the buying behavior of the consumers. So I think human and economic factors are very, very important, and we need to focus on these factors. We need to gauge the potential success of um, you know um of these factors on your specified markets, and also what we need to do is we need to marry these two together in order to have a very sound strategy for entering into that market. For example, you may enter that market into an area which has the least, uh, I would say, or the highest barrier for entry. Okay, so you have a very niche product, or you may go into a market which has a lot of competition, which is generic, right? So you need to these human and economic factors will define what kind of a market you want to enter. Uh, for example, I was giving an example of Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. In Indonesia, a niche product has a very low chance of success. Okay, whereas in Singapore, entry with a niche product, okay, has a better chance of success than entering into a generic market. So people generally innovate, install, and do a market test in Singapore first, establish a base, and then expand into Malaysia and Indonesia, rather than setting up headquarters in Indonesia and then coming back. Yeah,
Maybe. Every market is different, in fact.
yeah, yeah.
So, given your expertise in digital transformation and cloud security, how do you believe ESG principles and strong corporate governance shape the way businesses approach innovation and cybersecurity, particularly in highly regulated industries?
Hmm. Hmm. So ESG is shaping up in this part of the world. There is a lot of importance that has been assigned to ESG in the recent past, uh, especially after what happened recently in other parts of the world. Right. What we are seeing today is that cybersecurity has become a very important component of corporate governance. Right. We are integrating cybersecurity into our ESG practices, ESG policies. We are also deploying a robust governance framework and metrics on reporting around cybersecurity, and we are establishing clear accountability for all the cybersecurity measures that are taken into consideration into the organization. Now, what happens is in regulated industries, it becomes more important because there is a stress on data privacy, data security, and there is a risk of a huge, I mean, there's a penalty, obviously, there's a legal penalty, but reputational damage can be very big in case of regulated industry. So when we have data privacy and data security to be looked into, ESG becomes a very important component of that because we need to make the organization responsible for the privacy of data so that reputational damages can be minimized. We also need the organization to have a very strong governance so that we can respond and quickly contain the cybersecurity incident if it happens. Right. Now, what this also means is that we need to build innovation into everything that we do in the organization, right, to be sustainable. Now, innovations like, for example, a lot of technology companies today are talking about green cloud computing, green data centers, right? These companies are investing in technology that will enhance the operational efficiency for them. And when we as consumers, for example, a bank as a consumer of these technologies, when we go and buy with them, right, their efforts on sustainable technologies ultimately contribute to our ESG contributions, into our governance, into our sustainability, because we are using their technologies to run our operations, and they have ensured that the word green actually translates into profitability for us. Ultimately, a strong ESG will always create a long-term value. It will always create trust with the consumers, with the stakeholders, and it will contribute to increase in the profitability and markets for the organization, right? If the consumers believe that you have a very strong ESG practice in the organization.
Sir, a great relationship is like a tree. It takes time to grow, but once it does, it provides shade for years. You've excelled at upselling and cross-selling within large organizations like SBI. How do
Mhm.
you identify new opportunities within existing clients and nurture these relationships to continuously generate revenue?
Uh, well, this is an interesting question for me. Like uh, I also am a sales coach for some salespeople, right? So I often tell them that relationships, they take years to build, right? It's but once you have the right relationship and the right trust with the customer, right, it goes on for life. And there are, during your, in IT, in technology, salespeople often change their roles, right? They change from one company to another. So I can tell them, if you build a relationship in one company and actually nurture the relationship, you can, reap the fruits in your next company. So what happens is, on relationships, we need to be constantly in touch with the customer. What happens is, you build a relationship, you do a sale, and then, I've seen a lot of salespeople don't even visit the customer for the next 6 months. Now, what you need to do is, you need to have a constant engagement with the customer, whether or not you're working on revenue, right? And then during these interactions, you get to know a lot about what their future plans are, what their current plans are, what are they currently doing, even with people that are not related to the growth of your revenue. For example, when I was in Oracle, uh, we used to I used to continuously meet the people at SBI for something or the other, maintain regular touch with them. And this gave me a lot of opportunity to see that there were initiatives going on with people like, for example, KPMG or PwC, right? Where Oracle did not even have a solution to be sold. But then you leverage those opportunities, get to know more about their plans, their initiatives, and then suddenly you will see that there is something that Oracle as a company might be able to do, right? And participate in that initiative. Now, had it been the usual selling strategy of any organization, they would have focused only on opportunities that are there in the pipeline or that they see. They would not have made an effort to capture lateral opportunities, right? And these opportunities often result in building a huge amount of trust with the customer, because then the customer feels that you are actually acting as an advisor for him, right, and not as a salesperson. So salespeople need to, leverage the relationships and the trust that they've gained into becoming an advisor for the customer, so that the customer approaches you, right, for the first advice rather than, talking to anybody else.
Yeah.
I I think it's been more than 10 years that I've, not 10 years, about, yeah, 5 to 6 years that I've left managing SBI as an account. All right. But people in SBI still call me up and ask me where, which company can suffice this particular requirement of mine, right? Who, in your opinion, is the best vendor for that,
Yeah.
right? So that's how I think relationships become very important into identifying new opportunities and new markets also.
So security is no longer a luxury, it's a
Mhm.
necessity. Based on your experience leading cloud security initiatives, what key security challenges do you foresee as businesses continue to adopt cloud technologies, and how can companies stay ahead of potential vulnerabilities?
Mhm. So, cloud is a very interesting thing that is happening to us. Uh, while a few years back, it was like people wanted to move to the cloud, adopt cloud in any manner that you can. Uh, Today, when we have done that, people are saying that let's come back on premise, right? How
Yeah.
can we come back on? Now it's become a little complicated now. Now that you are used to the flexibility or the agility that cloud gives you, uh, it's very difficult for an organization to be as agile as the cloud service providers with the kind of restrictions and a fixed estate on infrastructure that they have. Having said that, uh, one of the key challenges that I see today is that with all kinds of solutions and business applications exposed to the cloud, there is a very rapidly evolving attack surface which is available for the intruders today. So your attack surface has literally expanded, right? And expanded beyond what you can probably visualize.
Yeah.
Now, this is for every cloud native component, right? Be it a simple access through the cloud to an application or the application itself or the database itself. It includes all public APIs that you have, a lot of microservices that enterprises are adopting today. And like I said, all the components that go in and stay on the cloud are available for the attackers to enter into your system. So with this evolving attack surface, what becomes important is that you need to have a proper monitoring tool to assess and secure the attack surface, which is people have disparate solutions today because that's how legacy, they started off a little bit with the cloud, they got a solution, they expanded to another cloud, they got another solution. So they have very disparate solutions today, and most of the enterprises are facing this challenge: how to have an integrated, comprehensive monitoring and management tool which will assess the attack surface and help you print it. The second challenge is, while it's good to have a comprehensive monitoring solution, the problem is that we have a very low visibility into what actually is happening in the cloud, right? With multiple clouds and multiple solutions on premise in your data centers, there is a lack of visibility. Now, again, lack of visibility uh, can be to a certain extent mitigated by using centralized management platforms which provide a unified view of the entire cloud environment. Again, traditionally, like all these cloud service providers like Amazon, Azure came with their own management tools, their own visibility tools, their own monitoring tools, and we adopted it, right? The challenge today is that we need to come out of those tools and we need to get into a centrally managed platform, which gives you the unique ability to have a unified view of your entire cloud infrastructure, be it a private or public cloud. The second challenge, which I most often see in my current role, is there are a lot of misconfigurations that may happen on the cloud environment. Right? Now, this is traditionally because you are not taking an entire application at once and getting into cloud, or there's not a new implementation for you, right? It is an existing implementation which is being modified in steps, right, over a period of time, and then you are also incorporating the various changes that the regulations drive, right, and making constant changes to the environment.
Yeah.
Now, during this, there is
Yeah.
a misconfiguration that happens that can lead to vulnerabilities. Right? And it's very difficult for all these vulnerability management softwares, tools to actually capture. and identify these vulnerabilities, because these are vulnerabilities which are in your application process, not in your infrastructure or not in your application infrastructure. Right? So the way to do that, I think, is you must have a regular audit of your applications. You need to automate configuration management, right? You need to implement uh, automatic audit observations closures, right? You need to uh, identify what are the exposed data or exposed storages, and what kind of control are you giving to various people, even from the inside of the organization and from the outside of the organization. You need to have a very strict integrated access management policies that are based on uh, least privileges. So you must, I feel that we must adopt a zero trust architecture with the least privilege mechanism, and have an integrated access management system, which is the same for whether the traffic comes from outside the organization or from inside the organization. Because most of the times these misconfigurations and these vulnerabilities are also created by your own internal staff, which take advantages of their privileges.
I think, like you said, any new technology is a bane and not so good for you as well. It can be anything, right? It can be good for you, it cannot be so good for you depending on how we manage it.
Absolutely.
Can
And the management challenges will keep increasing over a period of time because there are changes, right? Changes,
can yeah,
changes driven by your business and changes driven by the regulations that you operate under.
yeah, can be a bane, can be a boon depending on how. So now on to our last question for this session. How has your association with Directors Institute influenced your leadership approach, and what aspects of the experience have resonated with you the most?
Uh, I think a very relevant question. First of all, I'd like to thank the Directors Institute for giving me this opportunity to be a part of them. Uh, uh, Being a relationship-driven guy, even in procurement, relationships matter a lot
Yeah.
than selling, right? Uh, One thing that I've gained is the tremendous networking opportunities that have been presented to me. The interaction with different kinds of people with different and diversified experiences have expanded my thought process into being more strategic and long term. It has helped me to actually uh, transform my leadership style to a forward looking leader with the ability to take informed decisions, to take a holistic approach towards a problem or an issue. It has expanded my horizon to look into various things that impact decision making. For example, ESG, right? As a salesperson in these last 2.5, 3 decades, I never thought that ESG would have an impact on how you sell, right? Or how your products and services should be shaped. Uh, but when I became a part of the Directors Institute, uh, what happened was my whole exposure to what ESG meant for organizations transformed my belief that ESG becomes a very important part in making a decision. And that decision could be a buying decision. So if it's a buying decision, then the sellers should also focus on how their products and services will have an ESG impact, which unfortunately, I mean, you ask any seller today in the industry, who's chasing his targets, he will say, this is my product and this is my feature and this is the benefit that the customer will get. But that benefit will never translate into an ESG advantage.
Yeah.
So, so I think some of these things have really helped me. And I look forward to my journey with Directors Institute to learn more, to develop my own thinking, and to contribute to the society in. large.
Lovely, sir. I deeply appreciate the wisdom you've shared with us today. Your remarkable ability to balance strategic execution with innovation is truly inspiring, and I'm sure your insights will resonate with many who seek to lead with the same clarity of purpose. Thank you once again for a truly enlightening conversation and for joining us today. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, Tanmay. Thank you.
We look forward to sharing some more inspiring stories and insights from remarkable leaders in our next session. Until then, keep upskilling and finding joy in your journey. Thank you so much.